a bunch of folks that are joining us right now as we speak. We say hello to them. We've got a group in Milwaukee, Benefit Services Group. We've got a team there. In Madison, we've got Hausman Johnson that is watching. We've got a group in Tennessee that's watching. A bunch of folks. So everybody's give a Green Bay welcome to all of our folks.
Go Pack!
Now we have a lot of cool folks here today. For those of you who have spent a lot of time with me, I spent about 16 of my years in Indiana. Do not hold that against me. But have lived outside of Bloomington where IU is. And I have a dear friend who's here today, John Stocco, who used to be a quarterback for UW. He was fairly decent as a player. Only led them to what, the Rose Bowl?
12-1.
12, not quite, but not that he understands and knows that. And so one day we're talking, and he called me from Bloomington. And he goes, "Hey, I'm calling you from Bloomington." I said, "Those are my stomping grounds." He goes, "That was my stomping ground too." I said, "What do you mean? Were you from there too?" And he goes, "No, I had 301 yards in the first half against them." So John, it's great to have you with us today, buddy. And Ben came up with him as well. And he's a UW Badger, and it's good to have you guys with us. I want to welcome all of you here, everybody online. I also want to introduce to you the alter ego of Brad Lemeron. Brad, would you stand? Brad now, this is Brad minus 17 pounds of hair. It's great to have you with us, buddy. You feel lighter these days.
A little bit respectful.
A little bit respectful. Okay, so gang, what I want to talk about today, one of our favorite phrases around here is "it's not about your mama." How many of you have heard me talk about that phrase? Educators take simple concepts, Mark Smith. They take simple concepts and they make them more difficult in how they communicate. The Luxembourg Casco folks will like hearing that. I'm not an educator, I'm a communicator. We take complex concepts and make them simple. And one of the ways that we do that is we use lots of easy to get your arms around terms. One of them is called "it's not about your mama." Now, what do we mean by "it's not about your mama"? Many of you have been through our processes. Talk to me. What's it mean, "it's not about your mama"? Talk to me.
Don't take it personal.
Don't take it personal. Don't take what personal?
Information.
Don't take information personal. And so it's really about learning how to take feedback, how to take difficult conversations that need to happen, that you may be the recipient of, and learning how to turn that into data so that you can get your arms around it so it doesn't feel threatening. Does that make sense? Now, I've had a lot of folks who have asked me, "Fred, what are key indicators that you look for in deciding whether it is time to keep working with a teammate to try to coach them up? And when is it time to say goodbye?" Have anybody here ever wrestled with that? And one of the things that we say, one of the key indicators to that is really how does a person respond to constructive feedback? How does a person respond to constructive feedback? And I tell people, if you have someone that their constant, consistent response to feedback is to keep getting defensive. That's there, and everyone knows it. They're giving you information that they have a short shelf life. Would you agree with that? Because, gang, you cannot grow and be defensive at the same time. you cannot develop and be defensive at the same time. Because as you're being defensive, what are you doing with possibly information that could serve as a tipping point in your growth? What are you doing with that information? You're shutting it off. And one of the things that we know that separates elite leaders from others that are not elite is not that they make less mistakes. It's not that they've got less areas to talk about that need growth and development. We all, listen, none of us ever arrive. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
None of us ever arrive. Every one of us have areas that we have to develop and grow. And I don't know about you, but I don't get to a place in my life as a leader and as a person that once I'm here, I'm here. I find it's always a journey. I'll be here and then something will happen and I'll have seasons where I'm better at it than others. And so it's always an effort. And so elite leaders have the ability, one of the things that sets them apart is they have this transcendent ability to use feedback as a critical advantage point for their growth and development. And they not only know how to receive feedback, but they know how to give feedback effectively. Does that make sense? How many of us struggle with criticism? Anybody here? The whole room. We all struggle with criticism. So what I want to talk to you about today is how this whole thing about what does it mean about it's not about your mom. And so in receiving feedback, there's three things. First of all, do you have the ability to receive feedback without defensiveness and drama? Do you have the ability to receive feedback without defensiveness and drama? Second, it's not enough to receive feedback without being defensive. By the way, there's several kinds of defensiveness. One kind of defensiveness is what we call the over-the-table defensiveness. It's in your face. I'm not being defensive. There's another kind of defensive that we call under the table. It's much more covert and it's much more natural, and it's where most of us are. It is the very second someone is giving us feedback, the very instant, we have an immediate response. Why do we have an immediate response? What gives us the capability of having an immediate response? What have we not been doing while the other person has been talking to us? We have not been listening. What have we been doing?
Thinking.
What have we been thinking? What have we been thinking about? Come on, gang.
Strategizing.
We've been strategizing. My comeback. I'm building my defense. Make sense? Now, if you really are defensive, you don't even wait until the person is done. You talk over them and you interrupt them. Make sense? That's turbocharged defensiveness. One of the things that we know when we go in to assess leadership teams, one of the little tricks that we look for is we'll sit down in their leadership team. And I will observe very quickly how deeply do they listen to each other. Or are their leadership meetings a contest of compete whose voice is going to get in something first? Great leaders and excellent leadership teams talk little and listen long. Did you hear that? Excellent teams talk little and listen long. Their intent is not to get their point across. Their intent is to understand and listen to what the other person is saying. You'll get your point across. In fact, if you're someone who is seen as someone who deeply wants to understand the viewpoint of the other, you're not going to have to work real hard to get your point across. because people will want to hear what you have to say. Because your deep listening is an act of respect. Does that make sense? You guys with me?
Yes.
And so it is not only the ability to receive feedback without being defensive and drama, but it's also the ability to act on that feedback. Listen, you can be given excellent information and you can feel proud of yourself that you didn't get defensive. But if you don't do anything with it, it's still wasted feedback. So when I give feedback to a teammate, I'm expecting them to do something with that. And that's the third thing. I want to see change. I want to see change in their attitude, which is their thinking. I want to see change in their behavior that leads to different results and different impact. And so that's one thing. Elite leaders have the ability to receive feedback without making it about their moments. They're able to turn those threatening moments into data. It's just what? It's just information. Now, gang, when I say it's just information, I'm not suggesting that you demean or water down the importance of that information. Information is important. I'm not saying don't take it seriously. I am saying that don't make it about your value as a person. We've all talked about that every single one of us in this room struggle with our own sense of self-belief and our own sense of self-worth. And we know there is a direct correlation between a person's ability to grow and their ability to receive feedback and to use it for their good. And there is a direct correlation between the ability to receive feedback and a person's level of self-belief. You show me someone who cannot receive feedback without being defensive. There's a couple of other ways to be defensive. And the other is, in addition to what I've talked about, and that is the I must be right response. They'll listen to you, but what will they do? Or what will you do? Or what have I done? I'll give you 15 reasons why you're not correct. Now, I don't know about you, but defensiveness is designed to shut the other person down. Defensiveness is designed to shut the other person down because you feel threatened by their information. With me? And what I've learned in the years with most people, when someone gets defensive, what do we do with that? What do? We back off. For me, I've learned when they get defensive, they're telling me, keep going, baby, you're on to something. When you're defensive, you're giving information that there may be a kernel or even a lot more kernel of truth than what you want to admit. There's a reason why you're being defensive. If it wasn't an issue, and you know it's not an issue, you're not going to have that visceral reaction inside, are you? Because you know that's just, look, I don't want to be defensive. I just know that is so off base. They're so off on that. And I'm not angry about it. I don't have this visceral response. I just can't own that. And I don't feel any anger about it. When you know what you know, there's no reason to be defensive. And I've learned for myself that when I have that immediate internal defensiveness, when someone gives me information about an area that I need to get better in, and I have that immediate defensive reaction, I've learned, wait a second, time out. Before you discount that, why don't you live with that a little bit? Why don't you soak on that a little bit? Because your defensiveness, there may be something there. And I have found that almost always when I'm defensive, there is a kernel of truth that I need to sit back and look at. Any responses?
Yeah, for that one. I found out that the easiest solution to me I think everyone gets that feeling that you're being attacked or criticized. And for me, the easiest way was I would say, why do you say that? And I found out the majority of the time, the information they're going to give you isn't as scary as you thought it was. And the other part of the time, you're going to find out they're just full of crap anyway, and they were just criticizing.
Yeah.
So it really worked out well. And I got to take a step back and make myself say it. But if I say, well, why do you say that? You find out really, it diffuses the whole thing for me.
Excellent. Excellent. Anybody else? There's another kind of defensiveness, and that's the defensiveness of someone who looks at you and goes like this, but you have a very clear feeling that they're saying, screw you. I can't believe that you're possibly putting me down. And you sense, I had a coach that just called me this past week, and he needed feedback on one of his teammates. And he said, look, every time I try to mentor this person, so-and-so over here, they say, thank you, how can I take that information? Thank you for caring enough about me that you gave me that information. Listen, feedback that is given in a compassionate, loving way is one of the most respectful things that you can do to help someone that you care. Because often we're so close to ourselves, we can't see ourselves. Does that make sense? And gang, let me tell you something. If you are a person that your consistent response is to be defensive, you are shooting yourself and your growth in the foot, because you are sending a message to people around you that you are not approachable. And if you dare to have that information that you need to share with that person, you know, based on their past history, there's going to be a price to pay. There's going to be blowback. And therefore, most people do not have the strength to work through that fear and deliver the feedback anyway. What will most people do with that information? They'll just keep it to themselves. They'll say it's not worth it. It's not worth the conflict. It's not worth the discomfort. So I'll just let them hang in themselves. So defensiveness game, making it about your mama, is actually one of the worst things that you can do. And it will inhibit and stun your growth. The other thing it will do is it will isolate you from your peers. It will isolate you from your peers. Because pretty soon, hey, if you've got your act together, good for you. I don't know about you, but I don't do well around people who have this impression, that give off this impression that their stuff don't stink. I don't deal with those folks very well, because I know my life. And I know I've got all kinds of areas that I need to work on every single day. And so I can't identify with someone who never has an issue. You guys with me? And so gang, the defensiveness can take on the form of, yeah, I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'll show you. I'll show you how. And gang, people are not stupid. They will pick up on that over a period of time. And so what I want to, let me share with you some insights on, first of all, receiving feedback. And then let me give you some insights on giving feedback. And then let's go into our dialogue like we always do. Okay? So one, self-belief and the ability to receive feedback go hand in hand. Self-belief and the ability to receive feedback go hand in hand. You show me a person who feels that they are a fraud, they will look at feedback or constructive criticism as a threat. Because the lower my self-belief, the more performance-based I become for my validation. That means if I don't really believe that I am enough, I will have to find my validation from outside of myself. And that is based on, how do other people believe about my ability to perform, to meet their expectations? And so if you're giving me information about my performance and I'm performance-based, how am I going to receive that information? I'm going to see it as a personal attack. I'm going to see it as a threat. That is why people who have low self-belief, people who cannot receive constructive criticism, also will not receive accountability. They will not receive accountability. Gang, is there a connection between the ability to receive feedback and the ability to be held accountable? Is there a connection?
Yes.
What is it? Talk to me about it.
Self-awareness.
It's self-awareness, and they go hand in hand. And so you all, I'm in the shower this morning with my little guy, Eli. We have one of these walk-in showers that has 74 shower heads, and so that we can shower with all the dogs and the cats and even neighbors if they want to come in. And so that's kind of kinky, but what? No, this is why. Okay.
Cold shower.
Cold showers, fully clothed. And Eli was saying to me, he said, Dad, his name is Elijah Charles. And he said, Dad, don't call me Elijah. And I said, why? He said, call me Eli. And I said, why? He said, because my friends are making fun of me, of my name about Elijah. And he said, and Dad, I also don't like my middle name. Thanks a lot, Charles. And I said, Eli, I want to ask you a question. What do you think it says about those people who are putting you down because of your name? Your name is one of the most important things that you have about you. And Eli, your mom and dad took a lot of time and a lot of care giving you that special name. And when someone is putting your name down, Eli, it feels like they're being critical of you. But guess who they're really being critical of, Eli? And in his 9-year-old wisdom, he said, I get it, Dad, they're being critical of themselves. And I said, if you have to make someone small so that you can be tall, Eli, you will never be tall. You only will become even more small. And he gets it. I said, Eli, do you ever struggle with thinking that you're not enough? As a 9-year-old, he got it. He says, Dad, all the time. I said, Eli, your daddy does that. Every one of us do that. And part of beginning to develop a healthy sense of self-belief is to simply become at home with the fact that we all struggle with ourselves. It's okay. It's part of the human condition. It's okay. And so self-belief and the ability to receive input as data go hand in hand. Second, your self-messaging at the moment of the feedback is critical. Your self-messaging at the moment that feedback is given is critical. So let me give you some examples of what I do with self-messaging. When someone is giving me tough information, I will tell you, I always go to little Freddie that says, oh my gosh, am I in trouble? Oh my gosh, have I done something to disappoint them? That's always a default response in my head. And it will be until the day I die, and I've accepted that. And so I've learned some key message systems. One, I'll say to myself, and I wrote some of them down, literally saying to myself, wait a second, I'm enough. I'm enough. I have found that the more that I accept and I grab that whole concept of I am enough, I can receive just about any level of information. So I'll tell myself, I'm enough. I'll also say, it's not about your mama. It's just information. If they're about to tell me that I made a mistake, just because I made a mistake doesn't mean I am a mistake. That's another that's another key. And another one is if they're coming across in a disrespectful way, I'll say no one can disrespect me but me. No one can disrespect. In this moment of critical feedback, and their tone is not respectful. Their body language is not. They're violating my space. They're emotionally out of control. And it feels like they're attacking me. Gang, did you hear what I just said? No one can disrespect you. No one. The only way that you can be disrespected is how? Is if you choose to own the disrespect. That's the only way. When I'm being disrespectful to you, Michael, I'm actually giving information, and it's not about Michael. What information? Who am I giving information to Michael about? About myself. And so the ability to receive information, gang, is going to be helped if you be conscious about your self-messaging. We all do self-messaging every day. Would you agree with that? And so I had a lady in Yuma, Arizona one time that I was working with a firm. And she looks at me in front of the group, and she thought she was going to nail me. And she says in the middle of it, and she says, I know what you're about. This is brainwashing. Yeah. And I looked at her and I said, and I stunned her. And I kind of stunned myself because she made me mad. The little Freddie was right there in the room. And she went, yeah, I know what this is. This is brainwashing. You're here to get us to drink the Kool-Aid. And I looked at her and I gathered myself and I said to her, yes, ma'am, it is. It is brainwashing. And yes, ma'am, I do want you to drink the Kool-Aid. Because, ma'am, we all drink Kool-Aid. We drink Kool-Aid every day. We drink the Kool-Aid from the counselor who said we'll never amount to anything. We drink the Kool-Aid from the parent who said you'll never amount to anything. We drink the Kool-Aid from the person who said, I wish you'd never been born. We drink the Kool-Aid from the peer in high school who said you're a joke. And we internalize that, don't we? We drink Kool-Aid every day. And yes, I do love brainwashing people. You know what brainwashing is? It is taking out the gunk and replenishing it with healthy, timeless truth. And so it really is about what kind of Kool-Aid are you going to choose to drink. If you want to drink, ma'am, if you want to drink Kool-Aid with arsenic, go have at it. I prefer to drink Kool-Aid with vitamins and minerals that are refreshing. Make sense? Yeah. And so look at your self-talk at the moment. Third is don't take yourself so seriously. Gang, don't take yourself so seriously. I had a friend who gave me some feedback that initially it was really hurtful. I was working with a company and they sent 28 leaders through our process, and it was so profoundly powerful that at the last week they were talking about how their lives and their professional lives and their family lives had been so positively disrupted that they were so thankful for their organization giving them this gift. And I'm constantly telling people, gang, if you're a leader, you need to deliver the mail. You need to deliver the mail. Well, on the other side of delivering the mail and having those hard conversations, the other side of that is also showing gratitude. Because if all you're doing, if you're a person who all you do is give tough feedback, and you're never going to say thank you, or you're not going to acknowledge them, you're not going to give them praise or recognition, what happens after a while to the tough feedback? People start tuning you out. And yet at the same time, if all you do is give tough praise and recognition, and you never have the tough conversation, they'll look at that as what? You're just full of it. You're just blowing smoke. You see, accountability without praise, recognition, and gratitude looks mean-spirited. Praise, recognition, and gratitude without accountability looks weak and insincere. So you have to have both of them in the feedback process. And so I said to this group, gang, if you really feel that way, send a note to your leaders and just say thank you for the gift that you gave me. Well, and I didn't think anything else about it. And then I get this email about 2 weeks later from one of the leaders of the company, and he's ticked off. And it's the first time I've ever seen this in 20 years. He's ticked off because 28 people sent a thank you note. And he thought that I had directed them to send the thank you note, and it was a subtle way of me doing manipulation to show them how powerful this process is, so you'll keep sending us business. And he literally wrote that in the email. And I was ticked. I was flabbergasted that you could take something so pure and turn it into something so cynical. But you know what? Here's what my immediate reaction after being ticked off was to go, wait a second, time out. He's wondering if I'm being manipulative. Well, have I been manipulative in the past? Yes. Do I struggle with manipulation today as a human being? Yes. Will I always struggle with manipulation? Yes. So Fred, get over yourself. Take a look at it. Now, do I believe in this situation that's not accurate? Yes. But by the fact that I had that immediate response, wait, don't think you're so self-righteous that you're incapable of this. And I found when I was talking to myself about that, and I was saying, look, Fred, get over yourself. You're not that special. You don't have it all together, okay? This thing of, how dare you insult me? How many of you have ever had that response when someone, how dare you insult me? Who are the world? Stop, guys. Get over ourselves. Thank you. I will honestly hear that. And gang, the information may be true. And if it's true, own it. It doesn't mean you're a loser. It just means you have a growth area. Am I getting with you guys?
Good.
Yes, sir.
So I get that comment quite a bit from some of my managers about manipulation. Obviously, being in the business for a long time, it's all positive. It's like me trying to get them to drink the Kool-Aid, as you would say in the business. How would you view that if you're trying to so-called manipulate somebody into being something better and bigger than themselves?
Well, that's a good question. Manipulation game is really about me getting what I need you to do for my advantage. Okay? Leadership is about me influencing you and you making a deliberate choice. It's your choice, not me tricking you into being very clear. But it is a choice that I really want you to make. I hope that you'll make it, but it is for your advantage, and it may be to my advantage as well. Okay? But manipulation is typically only self-serving. You got that? Does that help? Yes, ma'am.
I would also add that the positive side of that would be influence, and that's almost always example-based. So it's saying, this is my knowledge, and this is how it works, and I encourage you to take a similar path, but without like trying to force someone, because that's more of a power play.
Yeah. You know, Grace, that is real. Grace, if you ever get fired, you need to talk to us.
Just got a new job.
Okay. So let me give you an example. I've got a company. In fact, they're listening. Some of them are listening right now. And the one of the key executives called me and said, "What's next steps?" you know, and I said to him, well, honestly, let me tell you what I'm struggling with the answer. The answer that I'm going to give you in a moment, I'm hesitant because I'm just telling you it is self-serving. The fact is you all need to go to the next level. You have not, your middle managers need to get on board with the cultural change, and you have not exposed enough people. So for me, saying you need to send 30 more of your leaders through this process, gang, is that self-serving? Do I benefit from that? Absolutely. And so what did I have to do? I had to say what? Look, so-and-so, I'm going to give you an answer, and I'm going to let you know right now, I'm awkward about the answer because it's going to benefit me. But yet I don't know how else I can do it. By the fact that I just said that out loud and put it on the table, what did it do? It diffused it because he knows that I'm being sensitive to it. He knows I'm not trying to manipulate it. Make sense? And so it's the level of intent. So real quick, let me give you some thoughts about when giving feedback. One, lead the conversation, don't manage the conversation. Managing the conversation is, I've got to carefully tiptoe around it. I've got to say everything perfectly. And it's really manipulation because you think that you have the ability to control the emotional response on the other end. You actually have so much power over this person that you can determine how he or she is going to receive that information. You see that? Gang, and listen, when you're managing the information, you're taking responsibility for how the other person receives it. The problem is you're not God. You don't know that person's filters. You don't know what their triggers are. You don't know that maybe 10 years ago they had a similar conversation that didn't go well. And now this conversation may trigger them. And so, gang, so if you go in dancing all over it and trying to parse your words, you're probably going to end up making it worse. Go in and be direct, say it and to the point. But this is the second thing. You've got to stay within your team norms. Your team norms are those things that your team has agreed upon. As long as we deliver and receive information from each other within these things, such as be respectful. Are you going to do it in a way that shows me dignity? Are you going to be real? Those things that I need from you so that there are acts of trust. That is why, gang, if you don't have those norms as a team, these kinds of conversations become, you set yourself up for managing conversations. You guys with me? So lead the conversation, don't manage the conversation. Second one is stay within the norms. Third, it's just information is more for you giving it than the receiver. If you have to say, by the way, I'm about to have a conversation with you and it's not about your mama and it's just information, gang, if you have to say that to the other person, you're probably not ready to have the conversation. That information is more for you than it is for the person that you're talking about. It is saying, check yourself. What are your motives? Are you under control? And that's another one. When you're giving feedback, don't strip second gear. Second gear is don't deliver the information until you get yourself emotionally under control. How many of us have given feedback when we're ticked off? How'd that go for you?
Oh.
And gang, do not deliver feedback when you are angry. Someone said, well, it worked for me last time. Well, I'm really glad that a broken clock works at least twice a day. Just because it happened for it to work for you, gang, take emotion out of it. If there's emotion in your voice, you probably have just put a big door that it's not going to be received well. Number 4, do not use it's only information. It's not about your mama as a weapon. One of the things that we've learned is people weaponize our language. They weaponize Initiative 1 stuff. And here's what it looks like. I'm about to eviscerate Joe. But here's how I'm going to get away with it. Joe, it's just information. But I think you are a raging scumbag. Now, but because, listen, honesty without repercussion. That's another one. If you dare be defensive, you're the bad guy, even though I just basically eviscerated you. Gang, that's not your get out of jail card. Okay? Do not use that language as a weapon. That I said the magic word, and now I can say anything that you want, I want, and if you have any reaction, you're the bad guy. Do not use that as a weaponized term. 5, show the back of the book. We've talked about that. When you go into a conversation about feedback, most of us are struggling with our sense of self-belief, right? So, I'm having a conversation with Bradley. And the moment that I start saying, Bradley, listen, we need to talk. What starts immediately in your head? Uh-oh. And the narrative starts. Oh my gosh, it's what's coming down the pike. Okay? As long as this is going on in my head, is the conversation that's about to happen, is it going to be effective for me? So the other person has to get these voices stopped in my head. With me?
Yeah.
So here's how you do that. You show them the back of the book. Bradley, listen, bro, we need to have a conversation. And I know that you may be thinking right now, uh-oh, don't go uh-oh. Because let me tell you why I want to talk to you. I am absolutely confident on the back end of this conversation, we're going to be in a really good place, and this is going to be a really powerful conversation. And the reason I want to have this conversation is because I really believe in you and I believe in us. And out of respect, I just want to share some thoughts with you. You see that? What did I just do? Now I can have a conversation. That is sharing the back of the book at the front of the conversation. It is showing them I care about you. I want to give you respect about having this conversation. And gang, if a person will not receive information at that point, that's not on you. You are not responsible for how the person receives your information. You can't be. You can't own it. But what are you responsible for? For how it is delivered. It is delivered with kindness. Is it delivered with pure intent? Is it delivered with emotional self-control? And is it delivered with respect? And look, people say, well, Fred, I'm not as eloquent about this as you are. I can't do that. Look, if you're sincere and you're doing it for the right reason and it's coming from your heart, people will pick it up. They will pick it up. So don't worry about the method or getting the words right. It's really about the intent of your heart. If you're sincere and you're wanting to do it because you care about them, it will come across that way. Lastly, I already just said that. Don't strip second gear when you are giving the feedback. And we just got a couple of minutes. Has this been helpful?
Yes.
Any comments or questions before we wrap things up? Yes, sir, Brad.
When you're in a group setting and you feel that there is that escalation happening and everyone's not emotionally right, how do you step back from it rather than carry the meeting forward and it just continues to escalate? Like, how do you kind of diffuse or step out? Or
We actually had a situation yesterday. We had that very thing going on. And I could sense the escalation in the room. So guess what I did? Hey, time out, guys. I'm sensing right now that we're starting to escalate some things here. It feels the tension is rising. Time out. Let's take a break. What's that about? Okay? Guys, remember, it's just information. And guys, and I've had people that when I'm giving information, they keep getting defensive with me. I will have conversations with them offline and say, look, if you're going to be a part of this team, you've got to grow in your ability to receive information. And if you keep being defensive, you're giving information about your ability to stay a part of a high caliber, high trust team. And I'll have those conversations right in front of the room with everyone. You put it on the table. Hey guys, it feels like we're escalating here. And so guys, what's that about? And let's talk about that without violating our norms. You put it on the table, Brad, and you just talk about it. Make sense? Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Back to your email, you were saying that, yes, it could be self-centered, whatever, for your business. Putting business aside, if you're obviously, I'd imagine a lot of us are in a position that we love and it's wholehearted. So if you're giving information or giving feedback, knowing that it's from a positive place for them more so than yourself, how would you view that as manipulation?
Well, one, gang, I will not use text or email unless I have had a deep relationship with people and they know me. They know my intent. And much of my communication with my staff is text and email. But it's because they know me and they can read through that. Except in those, gang, if you're going to have feedback, my suggestion is do it face to face. Don't use email, but don't use text. So, I'm going to have a conversation with that gentleman, and we're going to talk about it because I want to know, did it come across as, why does it feel manipulative? Because I want to see, is there something I'm missing? Is there that I'm too close to it? So I don't know where that's going to go. I just know we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it respectfully. We're going to talk about it appropriately. And I'm sure I'm going to walk away with a learning experience, but I'm also going to walk away not beating myself up because, oh my gosh, I blew it. Make sense? Mark, you, and then we've got
that question.
Okay, is that question? Okay. You guys are in a conspiracy? Is that what? Yes, sir, Brett.
When I was walking here late, admittedly, I walked by someone's desk and I saw they had crucial conversations on their desk. And my old employer, we did a 2-day training on that for all of the managers. And they have a lot of good information, and it's similar to this, but when I would have my managers talk to me about something, it felt very calculated and very planned out about everything that they're like a choose your own adventure book. Well, when Brad says this, then I respond with this kind of thing. And it lacked any sort of feeling or emotion. And so whenever I did that with someone I was managing, I tried to, plan what I was going to feel or what I wanted to get across, but not plan the entire conversation because you never know what they're going to say. Yeah. And if you use one of your pre-planned responses, it sounds like you're just, the robocaller.
Yeah. I'll always tell myself, just be myself, but be genuine and be kind. Be myself, be genuine, and be kind. And somehow that impacts the delivery. Hey, gang, I hope today has been helpful. It's great to have all of you with us. I want to remind you that these are the kinds of things that we do with teams and companies all the time. And if you have more interest in that, we got lots of folks around here who can show you what that kind of stuff looks like. We got coffee for you all. Hang out. This is a safe place. It's a great place to meet, even though we don't want this to be a networking event. We want this to be truly an equipping event. Really glad that you're here. Give yourselves a hand. Take care and say hello to someone that you haven't met yet.